Karen lived in a quiet neighborhood where the sun filtered through the leaves of tall trees, creating a peaceful atmosphere. She loved her home but felt increasingly uneasy about one particular tree, her neighbor's 20-year-old maple. From her front porch, she often watched children walk by on the sidewalk, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the branches hung too low and the roots extended too far. One sunny afternoon, as she sipped her iced tea, Karen decided enough was enough. The maple tree, with its thick trunk and sprawling branches, seemed to loom over the sidewalk like an unwanted shadow. She envisioned a child tripping on the roots or getting hit by a falling branch. With worry tugging at her heart, Karen marched over to confront her neighbor. "Excuse me," she said, trying to sound calm despite her rising anxiety. "I think your maple tree is too close to the sidewalk. It could be dangerous for people walking by." Her neighbor looked surprised. "It's just a tree," he replied with a puzzled expression. "It's been here for years." But Karen was not backing down. She insisted that it should be cut down and even suggested that it posed a risk to everyone in the neighborhood. Her neighbor considered her words carefully but wasn't convinced. The conversation left Karen feeling frustrated. She believed she was acting in everyone's best interest, yet she felt alone in her concerns. Determined to protect her community, she decided that perhaps an expert opinion would help support her case. After some thought, she resolved to suggest hiring a certified arborist to evaluate both trees. Surely this would put an end to what she saw as an urgent problem, a solution that would finally bring peace of mind to both herself and her neighbors. After her conversation with her neighbor, Karen felt a mix of determination and anxiety. She believed that the maple tree posed a significant threat, and she was ready to fight for what she thought was right. The next morning, she gathered a few like-minded friends from the neighborhood to discuss her concerns. They met at a local park while children played nearby, and the sound of laughter filled the air. "I really think we need to do something about that tree," Karen began, her voice steady but passionate. "It's too close to the sidewalk. What if someone gets hurt?" Her friends nodded, some appearing sympathetic while others seemed uncertain. One friend raised an eyebrow. "But it's been there forever. Are you sure it's really a danger?" Karen felt a spark of frustration but pressed on, sharing her vision of how the branches could fall or how someone might trip over the roots. As she spoke, more neighbors began to listen in. The conversation quickly shifted into a lively debate. Some residents agreed with Karen, expressing their fears about safety in the neighborhood, while others defended the tree as part of the community's charm. "It provides shade and beauty," one neighbor exclaimed, crossing his arms defiantly. The discussion grew louder and more animated, with everyone sharing their points of view. Some residents worried about the potential removal of other trees if Karen got her way, while others supported her push for safety. Each person brought their own experiences and opinions to the table, making it clear that this issue had touched a nerve in their small community. Realizing the debate was intensifying, Karen decided that bringing in an expert could help clarify things once and for all. With renewed resolve, she turned back to her friends and said, "Let's get that arborist and see what they have to say." This would give her an opportunity to address everyone's fears comprehensively, and hopefully lead to a solution that would satisfy both sides. The next week, after hearing Karen's concerns and the neighborhood discussions buzzing around him, the homeowner of the maple tree decided it was time for a second opinion. While he appreciated the beauty of his tree, the way its vibrant leaves turned brilliant shades of red and gold in the fall, he recognized that safety was important. Feeling the pressure from both Karen and fellow neighbors, he contacted a certified arborist to evaluate not only his maple tree but also Karen's pine tree. On a bright Tuesday morning, the arborist arrived, equipped with professional tools and a calm demeanor. As he stepped into the yard, he greeted the homeowner with a friendly smile. "Let's take a look at both trees," he suggested, ready to offer his expertise. First, the arborist examined the maple tree. He measured its height and inspected the trunk for any signs of disease or instability. The homeowner stood by nervously as the arborist poked and prodded at the ground around the roots. After checking every angle, the arborist nodded, assuring him, "This tree is healthy and well placed. It doesn't pose a risk to the sidewalk. Next, it was time to assess Karen's overgrown pine tree. The arborist approached it with a raised eyebrow, noting how its branches leaned alarmingly toward the street. He murmured as he studied its shape closely. After carefully evaluating the tree's balance and health, he made a troubling discovery. This tree is dangerously unbalanced, he declared, turning to the homeowner. If it were to fall, it could potentially damage power lines or even endanger pedestrians. With that startling revelation, both homeowners understood that they needed to take immediate action. The arborist provided recommendations and offered to assist in handling any necessary procedures with the city, setting off a chain of events neither Karen nor her neighbor could have anticipated. On a bright, sunny morning, the certified arborist arrived, carrying a clipboard and a set of tools. The scent of fresh grass and blooming flowers filled the air as he approached the homeowner's yard. He greeted the neighbor warmly and introduced himself before getting straight to work. "Let's take a look at the maple tree first," he said, directing his attention to the sturdy trunk adorned with vibrant green leaves that rustled in the gentle breeze. The homeowner showed him where he believed the branches extended too far over the sidewalk. The arborist stood back, observing the overall structure of the tree. He examined its height, noting how it stood tall and proud without any apparent signs of decay or disease. "This tree looks robust," he remarked after checking its roots. "It's well placed and poses no immediate threat to pedestrians." Feeling relieved, the homeowner watched as the arborist took careful notes. Next, they walked over to Karen's property to inspect her overgrown pine tree. As they approached, the arborist frowned slightly, noticing how its branches leaned precariously towards the street. He murmured, kneeling down to examine the base of the pine. With meticulous care, he studied its roots and overall balance. "This tree has become unsteady over time," he concluded. "The weight distribution is off, which could lead to serious issues." He pointed out how low-hanging limbs could snag on passing vehicles or break under pressure during storms. If this tree were to fall, it could damage power lines or injure someone walking nearby, he explained firmly. Both homeowners listened closely as he detailed his findings. With each observation, it became increasingly clear that while one tree was thriving, the other posed a significant risk that needed addressing, an outcome neither had anticipated when they first began this journey together. After the arborist shared his initial observations, Karen felt a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. She watched closely as he continued to inspect her pine tree, noting every detail with a frown deepening on his forehead. "Right here," he pointed to the leaning branches, "this tree is dangerously unbalanced." His voice was steady but serious, and he stood up to face both homeowners. "The weight distribution is off, particularly on this side," he continued, gesturing toward the direction where the branches hung heavily towards the street. Karen's heart raced as she imagined the worst-case scenarios, the heavy tree crashing down during a storm or a branch snapping and causing injury to unsuspecting pedestrians. The arborist seemed to sense her unease and added, "If this tree were to fall, it could not only damage power lines but also pose a significant risk to anyone walking nearby." The homeowner nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "What does that mean for us?" he asked, casting a concerned glance at Karen. "It means you need to take action," the arborist replied firmly. "I recommend having this tree removed before it becomes a hazard. It's important for your safety and that of your neighbors." He explained that an unbalanced tree like Karen's could cause accidents that might lead to more severe problems for the community. Feeling overwhelmed, Karen took a deep breath. The thought of losing her beloved pine tree was painful, but she understood that safety had to come first. As her mind raced with options and decisions ahead, she realized that they had no choice but to follow the arborist's advice. "Let's move forward with getting it taken down," she finally said, her voice resolute despite the heaviness in her heart. The conversation shifted from concerns to logistics, marking the beginning of an unexpected journey for both homeowners as they faced the consequences of their trees together. After the arborist submitted his report, the city took notice of Karen's situation. A few days later, a representative from the city's Parks and Recreation Department visited her home. He arrived equipped with a clipboard and a sense of urgency, ready to assess the implications of the arborist's findings. "Good morning, Karen," he greeted her politely. "I'm here to discuss the report we received regarding your pine tree." Karen felt a mix of apprehension and dread creeping in as she listened. The representative explained that the city had a duty to ensure public safety and maintain the integrity of its infrastructure. "Given the arborist's conclusion that your tree is dangerously unbalanced and poses a threat to power lines," he said, "we must take action to prevent any potential hazards in the area." Karen could hardly believe what she was hearing. "What does that mean for the tree?" she asked, her voice shaky. "It means that the city is ordering its removal," he replied firmly. "While we appreciate the beauty of trees in our community, safety comes first. Since this tree is on your property, you will be responsible for the costs associated with its removal." The weight of this news hit Karen hard. Not only would she lose her beloved pine tree, but now she also faced unexpected expenses that would strain her budget. She felt overwhelmed by emotions. The frustration of her initial complaints about the neighbor's maple tree now felt trivial compared to this setback. "I understand this is difficult," the representative added empathetically. "But acting quickly can help avoid any accidents or injuries." With that, he handed her a list of approved tree removal services in the area and offered to answer any questions she might have. As she watched him leave, Karen knew there was no turning back. The reality of losing her tree was setting in, and along with it came a new determination to deal with this challenge head-on. As the reality of the situation sank in, Karen sat down at her kitchen table, staring blankly at the list of tree removal services the city representative had left her. The thought of losing her pine tree was already difficult to bear, but now she faced the burden of paying for its removal. Frustration bubbled inside her as she calculated the costs in her mind. "Why does it have to be my responsibility?" she muttered to herself, clenching her fists. It felt deeply unfair that after all her efforts to address the perceived dangers posed by her neighbor's maple tree, she was now left with not only a hefty bill but also the loss of a cherished part of her yard. Karen remembered how she had only wanted to ensure safety for everyone in the neighborhood. It was supposed to be a shared concern. She had hoped that by highlighting potential risks, support would come from her neighbors and even the city. Instead, she felt isolated and overwhelmed, bearing the full weight of this decision alone. With tears threatening to spill, Karen pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. She needed someone to talk to, someone who could help process her feelings about this situation. She thought about reaching out to her friends from that initial discussion in the park but hesitated. Would they even understand? Determined not to let these feelings defeat her, Karen took a deep breath and decided to call an old friend who always managed to lighten her mood. Maybe they can offer new perspectives or at least some comfort, she thought. As she waited for the call to connect, Karen realized that although this was a tough moment, it was just one challenge among many she had faced before. With each challenge came opportunities for growth and resilience. Perhaps this experience would teach her valuable lessons about community, responsibility, and finding strength even when things seemed unfair. With renewed resolve, she prepared herself for whatever lay ahead. As Karen sat on her porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she couldn't shake the feelings of anger and disappointment swirling within her. The events of the past few weeks played out in her mind like a movie reel. She had initially been so focused on the perceived danger of her neighbor's maple tree that she hadn't fully considered the implications of her complaints. Was I too hasty? She wondered aloud, cradling a cup of warm tea in her hands. The maple tree, with its wide branches and vibrant foliage, was a fixture of the neighborhood. It provided shade for children playing in the yard and a home for birds. Once, she saw it as a threat. Now, it seemed more like a part of a living tapestry that made her community feel whole. Reflecting on her own pine tree, she thought about how it had always been a symbol of strength for her. Now, it felt like a source of shame and loss. Had she overlooked signs that it was struggling? Karen realized that trees, much like people, go through phases, some thrive while others falter. Maybe I was too quick to judge, she mused, realizing that trees require understanding and care just as much as communities do. Her fight for safety had led to unexpected consequences, teaching her lessons about perspective. With a deep sigh, Karen made the decision to approach her neighbor and discuss the situation openly. Perhaps they could work together to find common ground. By learning more about each other's trees and their needs, they might foster better communication and understanding within the community. As night began to blanket the sky with stars, Karen felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. While this journey had been filled with challenges, it also offered an opportunity to grow, not just as an individual but as a neighbor and member of her community. She was ready to embrace this new perspective and face whatever came next with renewed strength. The day of the tree removal arrived, and a small crowd gathered outside Karen's home. Neighbors watched with a mix of curiosity and concern as the workers arrived with their equipment, chainsaws, ropes, and safety gear. The atmosphere was filled with a sense of anticipation and tension. As the workers began to prepare for the task at hand, Karen felt a wave of sadness wash over her. She stood on her porch, holding on to the railing tightly, feeling the weight of every glance that fell upon her. It was a strange moment, knowing that this was her decision but also one forced upon her by circumstances she could not control. Conversation sparked amongst the spectators. Some neighbors expressed sympathy for Karen, while others debated the implications of tree ownership and maintenance. "It's a shame," one neighbor said, shaking his head. "That tree always seemed so healthy." Another chimed in, "But safety has to come first. If it's unbalanced, it's a risk." Voices rose and fell like the wind rustling through the branches still standing around them. A few neighbors started discussing property rights and responsibilities regarding trees. "I don't know if I'd feel right cutting down a tree just because someone complained," one woman remarked. "What we need is clearer communication about these things." Karen listened intently, feeling both supported and isolated at the same time. Their discussions made her realize how intertwined their lives were in this community. Trees weren't just individual property, they were part of a larger ecosystem that affected everyone. As the noise of the chainsaw roared to life, she closed her eyes for a brief moment, reflecting on all that had transpired. While she faced this loss, she also felt an unexpected sense of unity growing among neighbors, a shared understanding of the complexities involved in living closely together. Perhaps this experience could pave the way for stronger connections and more thoughtful conversations about safety, nature, and communal responsibilities. As the dust settled from the tree removal and the last echoes of chainsaws faded away, Karen stood in her yard, reflecting on everything that had transpired. This journey had been a whirlwind of emotions, discussions, and decisions, all rooted in her initial concerns about safety. She couldn't help but realize how complicated neighborly situations could become, often resulting in unintended consequences. While she had started with anxiety about her neighbor's maple tree infringing on public space, the outcome had led her down an unexpected path, one where she learned about responsibility, communication, and the importance of respecting nature. Her pine tree, once a symbol of strength for her, had transformed into a poignant reminder of how critical it was to assess risks thoughtfully and embrace the complexities of communal life. Contrary to what she initially thought, the removal of her tree was not just about cutting ties with a beloved fixture, it was about recognizing that trees are interconnected with their environment and the communities they inhabit. In her bid to ensure safety for herself and others, Karen learned that relationships, like trees, require nurturing and understanding to flourish. Seeing her neighbors come together during the removal process, discussing the implications of property rights and safety, highlighted how such events could strengthen community bonds. Conversations that sprung up brought neighbors closer, fostering deeper connections built on shared experiences and concerns. As she gazed at her now empty yard, Karen felt a sense of closure but also knew that this was not just an end, it was the beginning of a new chapter. With a commitment to open dialogue and united efforts to care for their shared environment, she felt hopeful that future discussions would yield fruitful results. In navigating challenges together, Karen realized they could create a more harmonious neighborhood, rooted in respect for each other and for nature.